Hey folks, our friends over at Sunset Lake Seder have a new release just in time for Labor Day barbecues and backyard hangouts. If you enjoyed their lifted teas, well, you might want to try their new lifted tea microdose. Each can has 1 milligram of THC and 5 milligrams of fast-acting CBD, so you'll start feeling it in around 20 minutes. The low dose means you can have a few cans and feel a booze-free, relaxing bliss. They come in two flavors: original, a classic black iced tea with zesty lemon and just a hint of mango. It's very tasty. And mint green, a refreshing mix of sencha green tea and refreshing spearmint. It's really perfect for the end of summer. Both are naturally sweetened with Vermont honey from a fourth generation family farm. And I enjoy these lifted teas, especially after work when you get to relax a little bit. Brian's been enjoying them.
I love them. I'm on one right now.
Oh, wow. I mean, well, I'll be talking to HR about this, but other than that, no. Never, not like that here. We encourage everybody to enjoy lifted teas whenever you want throughout the day. It is just a product that we always are really happy to get behind, Sunset Lake. We know that they use regenerative farming practices, that they pay their employees a $22 minimum wage. They've donated to refugee resettlement, to strike funds. They partner with the Majority Report on other fundraisers for issues that I know that this show cares about. And here's the deal. Buy any 3 4-packs, and you will get a fourth one for free. So that's 4 4-packs for the price of 3. Just add 4 4-packs to your cart and use the code LABOR DAY25, one word, at checkout. That's Labor Day 25 at checkout. Skip the beer and avoid the hangover while still enjoying the party with lifted tea. This promotion ends September 1st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Head over to sunsetlakecbd.com for terms and conditions. Again, that's code Labor Day 25 for the lifted tea microdose options, those 4-packs. They're really phenomenal. All right, now time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Garrett Graff will be with us to talk about what tipped the United States into fascism. And later in the show, Mark Hancock, National President of the Canadian Union of Public Employees, joins us to talk about reaching a tentative agreement with Air Canada. Also on the program, Fed Governor Lisa Cook will file a lawsuit challenging her firing as questions emerge as to how Trump was able to access her private mortgage information. When asked about sending the National Guard to Chicago over local leaders' objections, Trump says he, quote, has the right to do anything I want. That should be a game. Toddler or president? Pick. The National Guardsmen deployed to D.C. are now picking up trash outside the White House. Trump also says Republicans are working on a new crime bill. Remember when he was hitting Hillary Clinton on her super predators comments? A whistleblower reveals that more than 300 million Americans may have had their Social Security data uploaded to an insecure cloud service by Doge. All to give Grok all the info it needs.
Rock, what's my social security number?
To do nothing.
Or maybe it's not for Grok, maybe it's for his future X payments plan, turning Twitter into a bank.
Remember Doge?
Yeah. FEMA suspends dozens of employees who signed a letter criticizing Trump gutting their agency. ICE is targeting delivery drivers for apps like Uber Eats and DoorDash, and corporations keep their lips sealed. U.S. deportation flights have hit record highs. In Iowa, Democrats flip a key state Senate seat, a district Trump won by over 10 points to break the Republican supermajority. Joni Ernst, up in 2026. Gotta be a little nervous. You know, Ann Selzer was right. She was just right too early. It's a little inside baseball. 10 Palestinians starved to death over the past 24 hours, including 2 children. And lastly, a Reuters journalist resigns, citing the outlet's, quote, betrayal of her colleagues in Gaza. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. We have a great show for you. It is Hump Day. Hello, Brian. Hello, Matt. Hello, audience. We'll start on a bit of a somber note, but we have to continuously give these updates here because the situation in Gaza continues to be an absolute apocalypse, a holocaust. Don't take my word for it. This is Ofer Kassif, who's an Israeli politician, one of the only ones, one of the lone voices, really, speaking about what's happening in Gaza.
He's a member of the Hadash party. We've had him on the show, actually, which is the far left party in Israel. This is
him speaking plainly and saying this publicly, which, as we discussed with him when he was on the show, he puts a target on his back like this within a deeply fascistic society to be one of the few people in power saying this kind of thing. But it's important that he is, especially because in Gaza, over the past 24 hours, at least 10 Palestinians have died from starvation, including 2 children. And Gaza City in the north is being they've been just bombing rubble at this point. They've destroyed every part of like sustainable life in Gaza. By design, the only way that folks are able to eat is if food comes across, and we know that Israel is blocking an overwhelming majority of the food. So Palestinians can't grow their own food. Everything's dust and rubble and destroyed, and they are being starved to death by Israel controlling the entire border of the Gaza Strip, essentially, and not allowing aid in. I mean, Egypt's complicit too. But here is Ofer Kassif speaking plainly that this is a Holocaust. We can no longer use sugar-coated terms. There is no war in Gaza. There is a Holocaust in Gaza. Israel is facilitating a Holocaust, Gaza extermination, concentration camps, weaponized starvation, genocide, according to the most basic and accepted definition of the word. Anyone who doesn't raise his voice and oppose with all his strength the Israeli government and the IDF is complicit in this crime. A Holocaust is taking place in Gaza right now, led by the government, and with approval from the generals. Refuse to participate in this genocide. We must rise up against this government, not with violence, but a peaceful uprising, with strikes, protests, blocking roads, with every possible democratic avenue. This government is exterminating a people and facilitating fascism, creating a fascist regime also within Israel. Those that refuse to oppose this government will not only be complicit in its criminal actions, but also its next target. And there have been, thankfully, protests on the streets of Tel Aviv. I don't want to overstate these, though, because when you look at public opinion within Israel, that is not what you're going to see in an urban center like Tel Aviv, and largely the protests are centered around the hostages, where, okay, many of the protesters say we need a ceasefire so that we can get the hostages back and then return to the genocide. That's a common liberal opinion within Israel.
I mean, members of Hadash regularly are targeted for attack, and he's working within the system, and are very, a system that's gone horribly, horribly wrong. And Ofer is an extremely brave voice within it, and I'm really proud that we had him on the show. The truth is that we're into the point like America's were in Vietnam, where this is wrong. It's an atrocity that we're committing every single day for years. And the point needs to be even more direct types of sabotage, frankly. Whether it's like gumming up the works to like from within. I mean, these are extreme acts of bravery that you can't really no one's going to hear a podcast and be moved to, but it's going to take things like sabotaging the equipment, or going at generals or something like that, like fragging, for instance. Like this is where we are.
Yep.
With the IDF and Israeli society, and the settlers are their own thing too, even more aggressive.
And I want to show footage of that in just a second, but just to underscore Matt's point, and not to overstate the significance of these protests in Israel, but also to encourage them and to say that yes, more direct action is taken, and really this is the responsibility of Western governments to cut off aid and sanction Israel. And I mean, in my ideal world, the United States military would go into Gaza and get the make sure that the Palestinians were safe from the IDF and fight them if need be. Obviously, that is not going to happen.
I mean, that's what needs to happen.
But Western governments, because under Donald Trump, that's not what it's going to obviously happen. I mean,
and the word. I mean, there just needs to be all just needs to happen is stop backing up Israel and stop letting it have such an overwhelming force against everybody else who wants to do something about it, right? If we weren't constantly rearming Iron Dome, they would have to be more disciplined. They're not, and look what happened with Iran. They get hit in one hard way, and now all of a sudden they're ready to meet a ceasefire. They only respond to force. There's a book called this, Nick Thrall. That's the only language you understand.
Well, they don't want to advertise how actually devastating there's been a real cover-up of the impact of those Iranian strikes, because Israel is obsessed with its deterrence capacity, and this shows that they actually are vulnerable in many ways.
And it's good to know that. And that vulnerability, we shouldn't be trying to protect them from it.
Exactly.
Because that's why you've seen tens and tens and tens to hundreds of thousands of people be slaughtered in a Holocaust.
And back just briefly to the protests on public sentiment there. I mean, I have this article saved on my desktop just to continuously refer to it, because back in June, there was a survey of Israelis, and this is, this is overall Israelis here, but the 64% believe that Israel's local media's reporting on Gaza has been balanced, and there's no need to present a broader picture regarding the situation of Gaza's civilians. Another question in the poll said was asking Israelis to what extent respondents agree with the statement that, quote, there are no innocent people in Gaza. 64% agreed with it to a large extent, meaning that's a unequivocal. Sometimes you'll have somewhat agree in polls. This is completely agree. When it comes to Israelis' views on foreign media outlets, CNN and the BBC they ask about, 69% of respondents said that CNN and the BBC are biased in favor of the Palestinians in Gaza. So we have a society that needs to be pressured and forced to change and stand down from the outside. Because over in the West Bank, the crisis is escalating also at a rapid pace. We've spoken at length about this new green lighting of the E1 settlement plan, which segments and puts a settlement in between occupied East Jerusalem, which Israel has been illegally occupying, and is Palestinian land, since 1967, and a newer settlement that has cropped up and makes it so that it's very difficult to connect the West Bank that still has Palestinians in it, although they're changing that as well, to East Jerusalem because there's a bunch of settlers in between. And as that project goes forward, the Israeli government is handing out handguns to settlers and encouraging them to do violence. The man that shot and killed one of the Palestinians who worked on the Oscar-winning documentary No Other Land was released immediately by an Israeli judge.
Our Congress takes votes, and one of the votes recently was like for specifically assault rifles, and that's where this stuff is going to ultimately.
Here is a video of a Israeli settler in the West Bank and a Palestinian woman, and she basically stands her ground as these settlers raid her land.
Oscar! Oscar! يلا أخوها يلا أخوها.
I saw a subtitled version of this where she said, "I'm not afraid," right before she spit in his face.
Good for her. I mean, these are teenage kids, it looks like. The level of intensity in their eyes, you know, you're looking into the darkest corners of
Fascists.
humanity. I see some of these interviews with IDF people, and there's nothing so cut off from one's humanity that you can justify this kind of thing. And the bipartisan nature of this is really important to underscore. We'll get into this more in the second half of the show, but I just wanted to read this one excerpt, if we could pull it up, from Isaac Chotiner of The New Yorker, who does these incredible interviews that I don't know why anyone agrees to, because he gets the better of them every single time.
Hey, you know who came out well in it is Bhaskar Sankara.
the lone survivor. So this one excerpt is really making the rounds, the part about children. Chotiner interviewed Jack Lew, Biden's ambassador to Israel, and this part was just stunning when they're talking about the children that were killed. His answer to this question previously here, right on what on earth happened. So when you would call in the middle of the night, basically talk about the Israeli government and ask them what on earth happened, what was usually the answer? The general pattern was that in-the-moment stories were inaccurate and that the Israeli military and government establishment were not in a position to fully explain yet.
Please.
We could almost never get answers that explained what happened before the story was fully framed in international media. And then when the facts were fully developed, it turned out that the casualties were much lower, the number of civilians was much lower, and in many cases the children were children of Hamas fighters, not children taking cover in places. Chotiner. Sorry, what did you just say? Lew. In many cases, the original number of casualties. Chotiner. No, I mean the thing about who the children were. Lew. They were often the children of the fighters themselves. Chotiner. And therefore, what follows from that? Lew. What follows is that whether or not it was a legitimate military target flows from the population that's there. Chotiner. Hold on, Mr. Secretary. That's not in fact correct, right? Whether it's a legitimate target has to do with all kinds of things like proportionality. It doesn't matter if the kids are the kids of... Lew interjects. If you're in a command and control center, that's different than if it's a school that's emptied out and innocent civilians are taking shelter there. If you're the commander of a Hamas unit and you bring your family to a military site, that's different. I'm not saying everything fits into that, and I'm not saying it's not a tragedy. Chotiner. It may shine a very poor light on Hamas, but who the kids are does not make a difference in terms of international law. Lou, it is not the simple question that it originally appears to be when the initial report makes it sound like the target was just an empty school that families took cover in. In some cases, I'm not aware of the full explanations because when I left, we were still asking questions to get more detail and saying them to them that they have to be able to explain these things. And I'm not going to say that none of them fall outside the bounds of things, where there should be disciplinary action against them, blah, 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 blah. But basically admitting that they're okay with targeting children in what they deem are Hamas command and control centers. The whole area is 141 square miles, and prior to the genocide, where, despite what Lou says, we know that hundreds of thousands are dead. We haven't been able to count. The numbers we have are just the folks that are either came to the hospital and died. We spoke to Dr. Tarek Lubani about this, so they were able to verify their identity, or they were able to do so in some other way. But there are hundreds of thousands of people unaccounted for in this very, very small piece of land, presumed dead under rubble. Hundreds of it's major undercounts by factors over and over again. And there's going to be children everywhere because they're being held in an open-air concentration camp that you're carpet bombing.
This is, I know we need to get to our guest quick.
Yeah.
Abdul Rahman Anwar al-Awlaki, a 16-year-old born in Denver, Colorado, was killed in a drone strike in 2011 that the Obama in particular signed off on. At first, the United States government said, well, we didn't know that the 16-year-old was there, the 16-year-old U.S. citizen, again, killed in a drone strike. But then Robert Gibbs, White House press secretary, said, I would suggest that you should have a far more responsible father. His father was Anwar al-Awlaki. I would suggest you have a far more responsible father if they are truly concerned about the well-meaning of their children. I don't think becoming an al-Qaeda jihadist terrorist is the best way to go about doing your business. They had no evidence that this son was becoming that. But, you know, the people that were upset about Obama's drone war, this is where we end up. We end up making excuses for a genocide that the Israelis are doing because, look, there's kids of terrorists. Terrorists.
In a moment, we're going to be speaking to Garrett Graff, but first, a word from our sponsors. Hey, this is your reminder. Remember that doctor's appointment? That doctor's appointment you were supposed to make a while ago, the one you meant to book, but you got sidetracked and totally blanked and forgot about it? You know, the dermatologist appointment for that thing you've been meaning to get checked, or your dentist, or your checkup. Well, ZocDoc makes it easy to find the right doctor right now, and it's all online, so why not book it today? ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. ZocDoc lets you book in-network appointments with more than 100,000 doctors across every specialty. You can filter for doctors who are near you, take your insurance, and are a good fit for you. You can find the type of care you're looking for, from good bedside manner to fast wait times to doctors with the best listening skills. You can see their actual appointment openings, choose a time slot that works for you, and click to instantly book a visit. Appointments made through ZocDoc also happen fast, typically within 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even get same-day appointments. ZocDoc is how I found the first dentist that I actually like. And I'm not like all clammy when I have to go there because no one likes the dentist, but it's helpful when, you know, they're not the kind that's trying to rip you off. When I moved like from growing up in New Jersey to Brooklyn, that's how I found basically all my doctors. And it's so easy. The best part about it is that you don't have to play phone tag with the doctor's office. You have a website, there are slots that you can see when they're available, and you're able to just book online and look at it like a calendar as opposed to just like leaving voicemails. Do I hear back? It's agonizing, but not with ZocDoc. I'd like to thank ZocDoc for sponsoring today's episode. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/majority to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/majority. ZocDoc.com/majority. Links below in the video and episode descriptions and at the blog. ZocDoc.com/majority. And lastly, going online without ExpressVPN is like driving without car insurance. You might be a great driver, but with all these crazy people on the road these days, why would you take that risk? Thanks to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this episode and for protecting me online. Visit expressvpn.com/majority and you can get up to 4 extra months free. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network in cafes, hotels, airports, etc., your online data is not secure. Any hacker on the same network can gain access to and steal your personal data, passwords, bank logins, credit cards, and more. It doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack someone. Just some cheap hardware is needed. A smart 12-year-old could do it. ExpressVPN stops hackers from stealing your data and creating a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. It's super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption, and it's easy to use. You just fire up the app, click one button to get protected, and it works on all of your devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and more, so you can stay secure on the go. VPNs are essential, when I'm traveling, when I'm in a cafe, as I just mentioned. You just fire it up and it's super easy. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/majority. That's expressvpn.com/majority to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months free. expressvpn.com/majority. Links below in the YouTube and episode descriptions. All right, quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Garrett Graff. We are back, and we are joined now by Garrett Graff, historian, Pulitzer Prize finalist, writer of the Doomsday Scenario newsletter, author of many books, including his most recent, The Devil Reached Towards the Sky, and his latest piece for Doomsday Scenario is entitled America Tips into Fascism. Garrett, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure.
So, I love the title of your piece, America Tips into Fascism, because the tipping kind of evokes something about the present moment. Like, it's like that feeling when you're on the top of you're in like the front car of a roller coaster and you're about to go over the big dip and you're at the front, you're already down there, right? And you're just anticipating the big drop. That's like honestly what it felt like for me when I was reading your piece, trying to pinpoint this current moment. Why do you think we're at the moment here where we're tipping in, even though I know your piece talks about how we're not gonna be able to pinpoint one moment, but this period is the moment?
Yeah, I think it, we, as you said, we've been anticipating that this is the direction that the country was going to slide under Trump, not just for months, but for years. I mean, this has been a long standing warning about Trump's authoritarian and fascist designs on our country and our government. But I think a lot of people sort of wrongly have thought about this as if there was going to be like a light switch that turns on and off, that sort of everything before this moment is democracy, everything that comes after this moment is authoritarianism. And that's, of course, not really the way that it happens. And what I think we have watched over this last month, really just over the last 2 weeks, is this moment where we have just sort of tipped over the edge into a new era where our country is fundamentally different. That does not mean that this is irreversible. That does not mean that we are a full-blown authoritarian state. But I think we are now living in an authoritarian country in a way that even just 2 weeks ago, before the DC police takeover and the deployment of the military to DC, I think we were not yet at that moment. And for me, it's been this accumulation over the course of this month of these little moments and big moments. The DC police takeover, the search of John Bolton's house, and others that made me feel like this week, when we wake up in the morning, our country is fundamentally different.
Another instance where it gives us that indication, and you write about corporate titans lining up to pay tribute to Donald Trump, but Bill Gates was just at the White House, and the New York Times just reported that the Gates Foundation has quietly stopped sending tens of millions to like major Democratic consulting firms. This is just another example of like these industry leaders and these very wealthy people kissing the ring. Even the Intel stake thing, kind of converting a grant to an equity purchase without any conditions except to kind of merge Trump's influence and curry favor with the use of taxpayer funds with a major company like this in order to secure his support. The only thing you can really draw a comparison to is like the crony capitalism of, say, Putin or other capitalistic but authoritarian governments like that.
Absolutely. And again, I think it's the accumulation of all of these moments and actions over the last couple of months that lead to this conclusion that we are now in a fundamentally undemocratic, authoritarian moment in America, because this is not what America has looked like before. And that we see this, Donald Trump trying to control the economy personally, with, as you said, the taking a stake in Intel, levying an unconstitutional export tax on NVIDIA in exchange for it being able to sell advanced computer chips to China. These moments where, Tim Cook shows up from Apple in the Oval Office with literal gold to hand to the president, to help curry favor. And then these moments where we see the president really trying to dictate our lives in his one true vision of what Donald Trump believes our country should be like. This is not, authoritarian control is not just about the police and the military and business. It's about our, it's about his war on the Smithsonian and sort of declaring that he alone gets to decide how our history gets taught. It's what books we read in the libraries that he is forcing to be removed. It's his control over our arts in our lives and his takeover of the Kennedy Center in DC. And then even, this weekend, I think we lose track of just like how crazy so much of this is. And over the weekend, we had this moment where he's like trying to dictate to Major League Baseball that Roger Clemens needs to be inducted immediately into the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, this is our control of our arts, our books, our literature, our history, and even our sports.
He's putting total and totalitarian. He was trying this with Washington because they're trying to move the NFL stadium back to the old RFK site. He's trying to make that conditional on the Commanders changing their name back to the racial slur that it was previously. He puts the total in totalitarian, yes, and is constantly omnipresent, like in our lives. You include some excerpts from the Declaration of Independence to make your point in your piece, and it's striking how I'm not one to fetishize the founding fathers, but many of the warnings delineated there are exactly to a T stuff that we're experiencing right now with Donald Trump. Like, I have it printed out here, just some of the things that you list. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of government. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. So just some of the piece, people can read the whole thing, but just some of the like incredibly, eerie comparisons there. It's difficult to escape.
Yeah, and again, like we're only still 6, 7, 8 months into this moment. Like I think part of what I find fascinating is the extent to which he is speed running the abuses of power that we have previously literally had a revolution to fight back against. That he this is not years of accumulated grievances by the colonies. This is sort of stuff that he is doing on an almost weekly basis at this point.
The Democratic Party does not escape your critique in your piece. You tell a story about Eric Cantor basically being willing to crash the U.S. economy, knowing that Obama was coming into power, and how the Republicans really embraced nihilism at that moment. But the Democrats have basically pretended that streak of the party has not kind of taken over for years. What is your view of the Democrats and their role in this moment, especially the national federal Democrats?
Yeah, so I think in exactly as you lay out that question, to me, there's sort of a distinction between some very brave and forthright and clear-eyed leadership that we have seen at the state level from Gavin Newsom and J.B. Pritzker, among others, held up against the national Democrats in Congress, who have been sort of stunningly quiet as the president deploys armed military to take over the city of Washington and the national capital. And I think we need to. It is very obvious to everyone that this takeover is being done to the people of D.C. and not to aid them. And you see that in the way that in DC, restaurant reservations are down, monuments are deserted, parks are deserted. Like, people do not want to be out on the street for fear of running into these armed agents of the state. And the fact that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are unable to sort of muster the outrage necessary to say, hey, we shouldn't have the military occupying our capital, and I'm going to sort of hold some press conference in DC to oppose that, is really stunning to me. And you see echoes throughout all of this of the sort of creaking gerontocracy that has beset the Democratic Party in recent years, where Eleanor Holmes Norton, the nearly 90-year-old longstanding DC delegate to Congress, has not even been seen in public since the military was deployed to the city. And that when her office released her sort of initial statement, they even put out a photo of her at an unrelated protest to make it seem like she was active in a moment where she is clearly not able to actually act in the capacity that the residents of DC need her to be acting right now.
It's psychotic, and I know you have to run, so just really quickly, last question. Can you just compare this moment and the resilience of our systems now to, say, Nixon during Watergate? I know you wrote a book on this. So how is our response? Worse, better? Where are we at in comparison to that?
Yeah, so we're in a much worse situation than we ever were in Watergate. And I say that because of what we've seen from the actions of the other two branches of government, both Congress and the Supreme Court, both of which also obviously under the control of the Republicans at this point, where they are aiding and abetting the national slide towards authoritarianism in a way where when you go back to Watergate, when you look at Nixon and Congress in that period from 1972 to 1974, it was very clear at that time that Republicans in Congress understood that their first duty was to the Constitution. It was to upholding their role as members of a co-equal branch of government to exert checks and balances on the executive branch and to stop its abuse of power. Whereas, of course, over the course of this year, we have seen repeatedly Congress not care when the president takes prerogatives to ignore congressional law. And the Supreme Court under John Roberts has written Trump effectively a blank check as president for immunity for criminal actions.
Well, not super encouraging, but a great discussion. I'm sorry. I know you have to run. I wish we could have you on for longer, maybe another day. Garrett Graff, everybody check out the Doomsday Scenario newsletter and his latest piece, America Tips into Fascism. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, folks, quick break. When we come back, we are going to be speaking to Mark Hancock, National President of the Canadian Union of Public Employees. Be right back. Back, and we are joined now by Mark Hancock, National President of Canada's largest union, the Canadian Union of Public Employees, here to talk about the Air Canada flight attendant strike and now contract that is being considered. Mark, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Emma. It's my pleasure to be on today.
Of course. We loved playing, I guess it was last week or 2 weeks ago, a clip of you saying that you would go to jail in defiance of the back to work order that was issued by the Canadian government when you were striking. Your union represents more than 10,000 Air Canada flight attendants. You're the largest union in Canada. It's quite significant to say that kind of thing given the size of your union. Like, did you feel in that moment like you wanted to take a stand? Because I know that some of the other kind of public sector unions in Canada had been hamstrung by the government's intervention in the months prior.
Yeah, I felt we had no choice. These workers are amazing folks. Being a national president, of course, I fly across the country lots. I spend lots of time with flight attendants from Air Canada as well as other companies as well, and I see the work that they do firsthand. And they're amazing folks. 70% women, a lot of young folks that are really just trying to make by. And with the government intervening in Section 107, which had never been used. It's been in the labor code for decades. And in the last 2 years, it was used 6 times. And before that, I think it had been used once in the early 2000s. But for the government to use this basically ended negotiations, or the thought of the company planning on going to arbitration and refusing to bargain. There was really no choice. There was we were ordered back to arbitration, and these workers were not going to be getting the best contract by going through this process. So it was there really was no choice. It was a line in the sand. We're the biggest union in the country. We felt that we needed to take that stand, and we did that exactly.
It was amazing, and I just want to correct myself. Maybe not public sector is the right word. It was port workers, rail workers, more recently. So that's who I was thinking of there. But just take us through what happened to lead to that point. I know that there was a walkout earlier in August, and quickly, of course, the Canadian government, led by the Liberals, ordered you guys back to work. But how did it get to that point when you had to make that statement? And we should say you quickly got them back to the bargaining table after basically saying, I'm not going to capitulate here.
Well, the company was losing $60 million a day is what I understood. So it was having a big impact on them. We started bargaining just like we do in any round of bargaining. We have 2,000 locals, about 4,000 collective agreements that our members have across the country. We're bargaining every single day across the country. We know how to get contracts. It's not very often that we have to take a strike vote, never mind strike action. It does happen, but it doesn't happen a lot. So we were bargaining with the company, and this is one of the we don't have a lot of private sector, but Air Canada is a company, so sometimes that's a little bit different when it comes to bargaining. So we were bargaining. It wasn't going great, but it was going okay. We were moving along. Things seemed to stall quite a bit, so we took a strike vote, and it was an incredible strike vote. It was 88% participated, and then 97% of the members voted for strike action. So those are huge numbers. And just a little bit of backdrop, I guess, on this. We had just come out of a 10-year collective agreement with Air Canada, and our members were frustrated with that. It didn't cover the cost of living that we've seen, especially since COVID. In previous rounds of bargaining, the company had been in trouble, so there was a rollback of wages at one point. There was concessions around their pension in order to keep the company going, keep the company flying. And our members had really been suffering, especially the last 5 or 6 years. And so this was an important round of bargaining for a variety of reasons. Wages was definitely one of them. Not being paid while they're on the ground was another significant issue, but there was a whole pile of things that we wanted to negotiate. And we had some success with the company negotiating a number of things. But when we took the strike vote, the brakes seemed to be applied by the company. And it was pretty obvious to me and many folks that they were going to be looking for the government to intervene. And sure enough, we just started the strike on that Saturday. It does feel like weeks ago. I think it was last week. And we started the strike on Saturday, and hours later, the Minister of Jobs, Patty Haydu, brought in Section 107 and referred the whole matter to the CIRB, which is the Canadian Industrial Relations Board. And the company thought that would be it, that we would comply, that there would be some process through arbitration, and that would be the end of any dispute. And so they refused to bargain. And quite often, I'm not sure how familiar you are with bargaining, you're bargaining towards a deadline. And that's when things get serious. When a union is about to take strike action or to even vote on a strike, that's when really the progress is made at the bargaining table. But in this case, the company knew, however you want to frame it, that the government was going to intervene and use 107. So there was no reason for them to get serious about bargaining with us. Because as you said, once we made it clear that we were not going back to work without an agreement, that's when the company got serious. That's when they brought in a mediator, and we were able to get an agreement in, I believe it was about 7 hours.
It's amazing that you called their bluff like that. I mean, what could the government have done if they wanted to really enforce this in order to try to back up Air Canada here? I saw them kind of backtrack and be like, this would have just impacted the leaders, not the rank and file. Don't worry about it, or something like that. But it seemed like they, this government didn't have the stomach to use this law, which I know, like your union has called for the repeal of it. It was enacted in the 80s, which we here know in the States how anti-union that time period was for legislation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what we were facing criminal contempt. I think that day, and of course, with that comes fines, serious fines, and also possibly jail time for me and potentially other labor leaders. And we just made it clear. And I spent a lot of time with these folks heading into the strike. I'm even talking with them on flights about how they were struggling, and they weren't getting paid for the time that you're sitting on the plane while it was docked at the airport. And I don't know how much you fly, but I fly a lot, and quite often there's lengthy periods of time that you're waiting for a plane. I flew out of Edmonton yesterday, and we were delayed over 2.5 hours. And that time that the flight attendant is doing a ton of work, or those flight attendants are doing a ton of work, they're not getting paid.
Right.
And it's an inconvenience for me and other passengers. But the fact that those workers, that these flight attendants are working, just as hard when they're on the ground as when they're in the air and not getting compensated, there's just so much wrong with that. And we haven't completely fixed that problem yet, but it's a good start in this collective agreement. And the government has also now called for an investigation, a probe into unpaid work, which we're going to obviously take a big part of. But yeah, I mean, they could have thrown me in jail. They could have fined us millions of dollars. There's lots of possible outcomes, but the members made it clear. They were so brave. I was so impressed with them. I was at Pearson Airport for the whole dispute. Couldn't fly anywhere else. But we were at Pearson and just talking to these folks, many young women that's struggling to get by, making less than $2,000 a month in some cases at the low end. The new flight attendants, you can't live on those types of wages. So it was clear to me that if I needed to go to jail, if we needed to pay fines, that we weren't backing down, that we were going to support those flight attendants until they got a deal at a bargaining table.
It's incredible to think that you can be on the at the gate, but until those doors close, you could be waiting there for hours. The flight attendants are not getting paid for any of that until the boarding door closes, as they have to maybe do the hardest part of their job, which is dealing with pissed off people on a delayed flight and providing them service. This is when it should be the opposite, where they get time and a half, double time. This is overtime work for them.
And that doesn't even include the time while they're at the gate inside the airport,
right,
waiting for an incoming plane. And, that could be 2, 3, 5 hours. And that doesn't even include that. But I was on that plane yesterday and was flying from Edmonton to Vancouver. And there was a problem with air traffic control in Vancouver. So they said, well, we're going to board the plane, but you're going to sit there for about an hour. And then while we were sitting there for an hour, there was a problem developed with the plane. And I don't, of course, make the plane as safe as possible before we take off. But there was a lot of passengers who were flying from Edmonton to Vancouver and then beyond to Japan and China and different parts of the world. So those folks were really concerned about their connections, and they ended up missing them because we had to have a few mechanics come on about another hour, and then they still had to wait to leave because there was still the issue with the air traffic control in Vancouver. So it was 2.5 hours, 3 hours at least that we sat on the ground. And the flight attendants had to deal with angry, frustrated passengers. So you're absolutely right that they should be actually compensated more for that time.
I know that this has been an issue for, flight attendants here in the U.S. too. American Airlines, I think, got ground duty pay. Alaska Airlines too. I mean, what are the other areas that ownership, management, these corporations need to address in terms of, not speaking about the specifics of the contract that's being considered right now, but just the hazards of the work that you and your members do, and what isn't being considered, basically.
Well, as I said a bit earlier, we actually made some progress at the bargaining table on a few items, and I'm no expert in the industry. I come out of a municipal local here in BC. But there was issues around rest time that was dealt with at the bargaining table. There was issues around their pension. They lost indexing, as I said a bit earlier. They were able to achieve some of that. So there were some things that our members felt that were important going into this round of bargaining. But the big things really were those two items was the ground time not being paid for, And the wages, they'd fallen so far behind in the wages. And the employer had an opportunity because we signed a 10-year deal, and I had just become national president at that point. And 10-year deals are way, way too long. I much prefer seeing a 2-year or maybe a 3-year collective agreement. But they did that for the sake of labor peace and supporting and helping Air Canada turn it around, which is now making over $2.5 billion profit a year. So they have turned it around. They had these chants during bargaining. There was 2 wage reopeners. And rather than deal with the cost of living crisis that we saw the last few years, they refused to increase the pay by any amount. And if Air
Stock
Canada
buybacks instead.
It's the priorities, right? It's and this might the CEO actually they saw the Canadian government during COVID handed out money to employers to help keep them going during a very difficult time. Air Canada took advantage of that. They had nobody flying, if you'll remember, like we were shut down for months and months. And they took that money and they turned it into bonuses for their vice presidents, which I did some media on the time, which I have no idea how they were able to make that seem like it was reasonable, or they probably have to pay it back, or maybe they paid it back. I don't know. But the fact that they would apply to government for money that was intended for employers that were really struggling and trying to keep working and keep employees working, and use that for bonuses for the vice presidents is despicable. And there's not much positive I can say about the Air Canada senior management, but they're so lucky to have these great flight attendants working with them, and they should treat them with respect. And the ground pay, I think there's a couple companies in the U.S. that has it. Porter Airlines, who just voted to join CUPE, has some as well. It's not nearly where it needs to be. And as I said, this is a step for us in getting ground pay. We're not getting 100% all the time. It's a very first step. And if we can encourage we can convince the government to end free work, we're going to do everything that we possibly can, because these workers deserve so much more.
Lastly, I know that your union has been outspoken about the Canadian government responding to calls for Palestinian liberation, the rights for Palestinians, and trying to end the genocide and the complicity of the Canadian government. We know that Carney is recognizing a Palestinian state, lapping the United States on that, unfortunately. But people may see that advocacy and go, why? I mean, what does that have to do with the workers in your union? What would you say to that question?
Yeah, we're a Canadian union, but we take a lot of interest in what's happening globally. I visited Colombia last year, and I've been down there twice, meeting with workers, meeting with peace activists and different groups. And when it comes to what's happening in Palestine right now and the genocide in Gaza, it's our moral obligation to speak out on that. And while Carney has taken some steps, I would say he's been dragged kicking and screaming all the way to take the steps that he has. And governments all across the globe should be demanding that genocide stop. And part of the reason that we have become, I guess, so entrenched in our position is workers have been killed on the ground in Gaza, workers that we would represent here in Canada. So folks like healthcare workers or power workers or ambulance paramedics, a variety, and they've been targeted. And there's proven journalists as well. I know Uniforce Convention's right now, and they were just talking about how they're supporting journalists on the ground in Gaza and Palestine. So it's an important position for us. To be frank, not all of our members support us in this, but morally, it's the right position to take.
Last question here. You don't need to answer specifically on this, but as we're trying to take lessons from what your union is doing, I'm curious if you have a response to the last administration, Biden, using kind of a similar threat on the rail strikers to end the strike. Different reaction from Air Canada based on your actions, but what was your view on that, if you do have one, because I'd be curious how we can incorporate some of your tactics over here.
No, I mean, In the past, the governments hadn't used 107 on us. They took us to Parliament, and they would bring in legislation back to work orders. And we never agreed with those. And we've taken those to courts. We're in the courts pretty much across the country in almost all of our provinces, standing up for workers. And while none of our members want to go on strike, sometimes you just have to say there is no other choice. And, I'm not going to criticize other unions in Canada or other unions in the States, but fundamentally, governments should stay the hell out of it. Deals are found at bargaining tables, and when governments intervene time and time again, workers pay the price. And when unions take those governments to court, we win, at least up here in Canada. I'm not sure about the track record of the States, but every time we take a government, or it's usually governments in our case, to court, and it takes 10 years to get through the damn process, but every single time we win. But you can't wait 10 years for the rights of workers to be upheld, especially in this case with our members that are making such poor wages and working for free. There's no way in hell that we could have waited 10 years to work our way through the courts. So that line in the sand, proverbial or otherwise, I think unions have to start drawing that more often.
Well said. Mark Hancock, National President of the Canadian Union of Public Employees. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And my son Caden got in touch with you folks. So I'm happy to do this. And he's watching now with my daughter Kira. So big hi to both of them.
Oh,
shout out, Caden.
Hi to Caden. Hi to Kira. So glad that they made the connection here, because we were thrilled to have you on. Thanks so much.
Right on. It's been my pleasure. You guys take care.
You too. All right. Well, with that, folks, we are going to be joined by a special guest in just a second for the fun half. But I did want to remind people of this Gaza bakery that we have been highlighting here as like a place where if you have some extra funds. So, usually I would plug right now, become a Majority Report member, but today, instead, please see if you can help the Gaza bakery here. I received a message from them after we played the footage of the double tap strike on Nasser Hospital that killed workers and people who were trying to help basically after the first strike happened. And one of the people in the video was a member of the family here. So
did you see the Israel's what they said their reasoning for that double tap was? They were shooting at a Hamas camera.
Yeah.
Psychotic.
The camera, the scary camera.
Under the camera, like Shireen Abu Akleh.
The Gaza bakery has been doing its best to feed folks. It's incredibly difficult conditions. It's probably quite difficult to get the food in there. But we have seen videos and we've played them for you about their work. One of their family members was in gray in that video. I don't know if people saw it, but it's on camera. So was trying to help and was killed by the second strike by the Israelis. So if you can, please help the Gaza bakery. Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Yeah, Left Reckoning, we had a great show last night. Pele Dragstead talking about his book on Nordic socialism, and also we had a author talk about military health issues. Alexander Lemon's talking about war body, which is, different types of poisonings you have for being a troop. They don't put that in the brochure when it's like, hey, travel to fancy locations and get your college paid for. You might have heavy metal poisoning, but at least you didn't have to pay for college and go into massive amounts of debt. So America, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
And now we will bring in our special guest. Always a pleasure, Francesca Fiorentini, comedian, host of The Bitchuation Room, who will be in Houston tomorrow. And
if you can unmute, Francesca.
You are muted. I will speak for you. You were saying some really offensive things. I won't repeat that, obviously, to the audience. But anyway, you and your great husband, Matt Lieb of the Bad Hasbara show, and also Pod Yourself a Gun, which is now about Mad Men, even though originally it's about The Sopranos. So
I don't know how I'm muted.
Oh,
this is
we hear you now.
You're
we hear you
unmuted.
now.
Okay, great. Okay, sorry. I've it's not like it's my first time. What's up, guys? Yes, thank you for having me. And yeah, if anyone wants to, you know, take a load off in the Houston area, come down, see Matt and myself. We co-headline. It's super fun. Our
At
child
the Houston Punchline. Here it
Yes.
is, 7:30 p.m. tomorrow when you're jetting off in just a bit.
Yes, in like half an hour. So, you know, Houston, Texas, first red state in a while. Not necessarily our market, but I know there's some awesome Frantifa and probably some very moral listeners out in the Houston area.
Yep.
Who should come through,
Most
which is
moral
very
listeners.
the most moral listener. It's very fun to me now to be on shows with Matt because there are people who come who have no idea who I am. And so we'll be like waiting to go on. And then someone will just like walk past me and be like, oh, and then Matt will walk past them and they'll be like, oh my God, that's the guy we just came to see. Oh my God. And I'll be
How does that feel? How does it feel to completely be outshined by your husband? I feel like this is a step backward for women.
it really is awful. It's awful because every time before, if I would ever get recognized from random, you know, AJ Plus stuff, Matt would come up to them and be like, what about me? What about here? He would make it such a huge thing. And just the idea that there are like, you know, women swooning over him. I mean, look, I married him. There's a reason for that, but I'm also like, come on.
Have you
heard him
guy?
chew? Have you heard him eat? Anyway, it's so yeah. Yes, please come see it. It'll be super fun. And also, plugs out of the way. I'm working on a new format, y'all. I'm doing long form. Emma, I don't know if I've said this to you, but I've switched it up because the news is just like it's too much. And
it's great. This is one of your latest, the Maha Lies one.
Yes, this is everything RFK has destroyed so far. And I say this as someone who, I don't know about you guys, but I like skip RFK Jr. stories because they're so depressing and terrifying.
I know.
And so I was like, let's put all the pain in one place. It's an hour long. So if you guys want to check it out, viewers, you can also listen as a podcast. That would be tight. And now I'm freezing. Okay, I'm good.
No, you sound good though.
Okay,
so it's all good. That's awesome. I love that format. Check it out. The Bituation Room is a great listen. As always. All right. Well, also, Austin's kind of taken over by those like comedy cosplayers, right? So you can make Houston into the new hot city down there.
First of all, I love Houston. You'll be like in Houston and a random person will be like, I like your hair. And you're like, I love you. No, Houston's amazing. I am halfway through the new Elephant Graveyard video, which is taking down the mothership and the Rogan Sphere. I'm sure Brian probably has already seen it, and
I sent it 8 minutes after it came out.
I sent it to Brian immediately, but I didn't finish it myself. I watched the first 20 minutes. The guy is amazing.
It settles some personal scores.
It's good. My only gripe, I'm halfway through, and here's my thing about what spurred Rogan. I also think that the Me Too backlash has everything to do, especially Me Too in the comedy sphere, because it did hit the comedy world as well, obviously. And all of those comedians are no longer working. So they've all been canceled. And so I think that also the reaction to Me Too, I think really is what also juiced some of the mothership and this reactionary comedy.
Yeah.
We'll put it up here. Get the title in there, Brian, so people can see what the title of the video is. But this is, Elephant Graveyard, I believe a Canadian content creator who is, I mean, we've plugged his stuff
played
before.
it before, yeah.
But just sort of genius, half genuine, half sort of hammed up psychoanalysis.
It's giving a little bit of loose change. There's a lot of like...
Yes.
Let loose change vibes, but you know what? I'm kind of here for it. So
I mean, he broke down Rogan's latest stand-up special, so you don't have to. That's another one of his famous videos. So everyone go check out.
And when he
Graveyard.
zeroes in on Rogan's daddy issues, I usually downplay like sort of psychoanalysis. I think it's pretty usually not that insightful and says more about the person doing it. But in this case, no. Like we have Joe Rogan's brain sort of like on a like a frog in a high school dissecting table. Like we can see everything about that thing.
And the Elon daddy issues too.
Oh my God! I mean, you don't even need to psychoanalyze that.
Daddy.
He just laid it all out for everybody.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll head into the fun half, and we'll have Francesca stick around for just a little bit before her flight and do some clips. See you on the other side.